Welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to look at the 5 worst foods that you can put into your prepper pantry for long-term survival. Foods that might cause a disaster during that coming mega SHTF event. So grab your notepad and pen, because the information I'm about to share could be crucial when the grid goes down. Stick around to the very end for a complete understanding of what to avoid and why. Now, the first thing I always tell folks is this. Prepping isn't just about hoarding food, it's about being smart with how you store it. It's about understanding how to make that food last as long as possible, ensuring it remains safe and nutritious. And that brings us to our first category of foods to avoid, those that require repackaging. This is a crucial step in your prepping journey. You see it all the time. Giant bags of rice, oats, pancake mix, flour, all just sitting there in their flimsy, store-bought packaging. These packages are convenient for short-term use, but not for long-term storage. Here's the thing. Those packages are not designed for long-term storage. They are often made of thin plastic or paper, which can easily tear or degrade. They're vulnerable to moisture, pests, and even just plain old air, which can degrade the quality of your food over time. Moisture can lead to mold, while pests can infest and ruin your supplies. I've seen it firsthand. Open a bag of flour after a year in a humid environment, and you're likely to find it's home to more than just baking ingredients. It's a breeding ground for bugs and mold. Now, don't get me wrong. These staples, rice, oats, flour, they're all essential for a prepper pantry. They form the backbone of many meals and are versatile ingredients, but you need to repackage them into airtight, moisture-proof containers. This step is non-negotiable if you want your food to last. Think Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers or high-quality food-grade buckets. These materials are designed to keep out air, moisture, and pests. It takes a bit of extra work, sure, but trust me, it's worth it in the long run. The peace of mind knowing your food is safe and secure is invaluable. You need to treat your prepper pantry like your life raft on a sinking ship. Every item in there is crucial for your survival. A little investment in the right containers can save you a whole lot of trouble down the line. It's a small price to pay for the security of knowing your food will be there when you need it. I've got some detailed videos on my channel about different repackaging techniques, so be sure to check those out. They cover everything from choosing the right containers to sealing them properly. Remember, when the SHTF, you won't have the luxury of running to the store for a new bag of flour. The shelves will be empty, and you'll need to rely on what you've stored. What you've got in your pantry is what you've got. Make sure it's enough and that it's stored correctly. So make sure it's stored properly and ready to last. This is your insurance policy against uncertain times. Your future self will thank you for it. You'll be glad you took the time to do it right. All right, let's move on to our next category, foods that require refrigeration after opening. This one's a real head-scratcher for me. I mean, we're talking about long-term food storage here, right? And unless you've got a generator that runs on hopes and dreams, chances are your fridge won't be much help when the grid goes down. Now, I'm not saying you can't have any of these foods in your pantry, but you need to be smart about it. First off, consider the package size. A giant jar of pickles might sound like a good deal, but once you open it, you've got a ticking time bomb on your hands. Instead, opt for smaller portions, things you can realistically consume before they spoil. Or better yet, look for shelf-stable alternatives. Did you know they make powdered milk that doesn't require refrigeration? It might not be exactly the same as fresh milk, but in a pinch, it'll do the trick. Dehydrated fruits and vegetables are a great option. They last for ages, don't take up much space, and can add some much-needed nutrients to your diet. You can even find dehydrated meals like chili and pasta that just need water to rehydrate. Another thing to consider is your cooking methods. If you're relying on a gas stove or oven, you're out of luck when the gas runs dry. That's why I always recommend having a backup plan, like a propane camp stove or a solar oven. A little bit of planning can go a long way in a survival situation. The taste test foods you find despicable or simply don't like. Let's talk about something that might seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people get this wrong. Don't stock your pantry with foods you can't stand to eat. This isn't some gourmet food festival. It's about survival. And when you're facing a real crisis, the last thing you want to do is force down food that makes you gag. I remember this one time, deep in the Canadian wilderness, I was down to my last few rations. It was this freeze-dried concoction that I swear tasted like a mix of dirt and despair. But I ate it because I had to. Now, I'm not saying you need to go out and buy a lifetime supply of your least favorite foods, but you should have at least a few options that you know you can stomach even when times are tough. Consider your dietary needs and restrictions. Got allergies, gluten intolerance, lactose issues? Now's the time to be picky. The last thing you need in a crisis is a flare-up because you ate something that disagreed with you. Take some time to really think about your food preferences. What are some basic shelf-stable foods that you actually enjoy eating? Maybe it's canned tuna, peanut butter, or dried fruit. It'll make a world of difference when you're facing a challenging situation. The cooking conundrum: foods you are not prepared to properly cook or prepare. All right, let's talk about another common mistake I see preppers making: stocking up on foods they have no idea how to prepare. It's a classic error that can turn your well-intentioned stockpile into a source of frustration. Look, I get it. Those bags of dry beans and wheat berries seem like a steal. They're affordable, they store well, and they've got a shelf life longer than your last relationship. They're cheap, they store well, and they've got a shelf life longer than your last relationship. But here's the catch. They require some serious prep work. You can't just toss them in a pot and expect a gourmet meal. You ever try cooking dry beans without soaking them first? It's a rookie mistake that can lead to hours of simmering with little to show for it. Let me tell you, it's an exercise in futility. You'll be simmering those bad boys for hours, and they'll still come out tough as leather. And that's not just frustrating, it's a waste of precious resources. And don't even get me started on wheat berries. They might look like a great addition to your pantry, but they're a whole different beast. Unless you've got a mill or grinder, you're going to be chewing on those things until the cows come home. They're not exactly user-friendly. Now, I'm all for self-sufficiency and learning new skills. It's great to expand your culinary horizons, but there's a time and place for that. But in a survival situation, the last thing you want to be doing is experimenting with unfamiliar ingredients and cooking methods. You need reliability and simplicity. You need food that's quick, easy, and reliable. Something you can prepare with minimal effort and resources. So before you fill your pantry with those hard-to-cook staples, ask yourself a few questions. Do I have the equipment to prepare these foods? Do I have the time and resources to learn how to cook them properly? And most importantly, will I actually eat them when the time comes? If the answer to any of those questions is no, then you might want to reconsider your choices. There are plenty of other shelf-stable options out there that are much easier to prepare. Think canned goods, pasta, and other simple staples. The key takeaway here is to be prepared, not just with the right foods, but with the knowledge and skills to make the most of them. Your future self will thank you. The family factor: foods you and your family won't eat. All right, folks, let's talk about the human element of prepping. It's not just about stockpiling supplies. It's about ensuring those supplies are actually usable and, more importantly, consumable by everyone in your household. It's all well and good to have a pantry full of food that could last you through a nuclear winter. You might have the most organized and well-stocked pantry in the neighborhood. But what good is it if your family refuses to touch the stuff? Imagine the frustration of having all that food and no one willing to eat it. This isn't just about you, it's about everyone you care about. Your prepping efforts should be inclusive, taking into account the tastes and preferences of each family member. I remember one time I was working with a family who had a pretty impressive prepper pantry. They had invested a lot of time and money into making sure they were prepared for any situation. I'm talking rows upon rows of canned goods, buckets of grains, the whole 9 yards. It was a sight to behold, a true testament to their dedication. But when it came time to actually eat the food, the kids were turning their noses up at it. They simply weren't interested in the healthy, long-lasting options available. They were used to processed meals, sugary snacks, the works. Their palates were accustomed to the convenience and taste of modern, less nutritious foods. And trying to get them to eat plain rice and beans was like trying to herd cats. It was a constant battle at the dinner table, leading to frustration for everyone involved. Look, I understand that kids can be picky eaters. It's a common issue many parents face, and it can be even more challenging in a prepping scenario. But in a survival situation, you can't afford to be picky. The luxury of choice may not be available, and it's crucial to adapt to what's on hand. You need to be able to eat what you have, and that means getting your family on board with your prepper pantry. It's about creating a sense of unity and shared purpose. So how do you do that? How do you make sure everyone is on the same page and willing to eat the food you've stored? Well, it starts with involving them in the process. Make them part of the journey from the very beginning. Take them shopping with you. Let them help you choose foods they'll actually eat, and get them involved in the cooking. This way, they feel a sense of ownership and are more likely to be open to trying new things. Trust me, kids are much more likely to eat something they helped make. It's a simple but effective way to get them excited about the food in your prepper pantry. Another tip is to gradually introduce your family to your prepper pantry. Don't overwhelm them with too many new foods at once. Don't just spring it on them all at once. Start by incorporating 1 or 2 new foods into your meals each week. This gradual approach helps them adjust without feeling forced. Start by incorporating 1 or 2 new foods into your meals each week. This way, they can slowly get used to the taste and texture of different foods. The key here is to make it a family affair. When everyone is involved, it becomes a shared experience rather than a chore. Prepping shouldn't be something you do in isolation. It should be a collaborative effort that brings your family closer together, ensuring everyone is prepared and willing to eat what you've stored. So there you have it, folks. 5 common mistakes to avoid when stocking your prepper pantry. Remember, it's not just about quantity. It's about quality, practicality, and making sure you're prepared for the long haul. Avoid those foods that require special packaging, refrigeration, or skills you don't have. And most importantly, make sure you and your family will actually eat what you store. Now, I want to hear from you. What are some foods you absolutely avoid putting in your prepper pantry? Share your own avoid list in the comments below. Stay aware, stay prepared.